Okay, so let's dive right in. We're going to pull back the curtain on something that's a huge part of our world, the business. You know, from the local coffee shop you hit every morning to those giant tech companies we all know, we're going to figure out what a business really, truly is.
I mean, think about it. You interact with dozens of businesses every single day. But have you ever really stopped and wondered what makes them tick? What's the secret sauce that turns a simple idea into a successful company? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down.
To get to that secret, we've got to start with the absolute basics. We need a really solid, clear definition. When we use the word business, what are we actually talking about?
I really like this definition from business professors Pride, Hughes, and Kapoor. It's great because it basically gives us the 3 essential ingredients for any business. So let's take a look at what they are.
And here's what's so powerful about these 3 points. They apply to everything. It seriously doesn't matter if it's a one-person food truck or a massive global car company. They all have to combine an organized effort, they all have to solve a need, and they all have to be trying to make a profit.
Okay, so you've got your 3 main ingredients, but what do you put them in? You need a structure, right? The legal form you choose is kind of like the blueprint for the whole operation.
Now, the legal stuff might sound a little dry, but trust me, it's a huge deal. There are a bunch of options. Partnerships, LLCs, you name it. But the biggest difference usually boils down to one simple question. How much personal risk is the owner taking on? And this is the absolute key difference. If you're a sole proprietor with unlimited liability and your business racks up debt, well, they can come after your personal stuff, your car, your house, it's all on the line. But a corporation? That creates a legal shield. The business is treated like its own person, which protects the owner's personal assets if things go wrong.
All right, now we get to the really fun part. We've talked about what a business is, but now we're going to get into the secret recipe for how the most successful businesses actually work and thrive.
You know, you'd think the goal is just profit, right? But the businesses that truly knock it out of the park are focused on something way more fundamental. They are absolutely obsessed with creating something called value.
This formula looks super simple, but it is incredibly powerful. It shows us the entire pie of value that a business creates. And that pie is simply the difference between the absolute most a customer would ever pay for something and what it actually costs the business to make it.
So this willingness to pay, or WTP, it's all about the customer's point of view. Let's say you smell the most amazing loaf of bread ever. WTP is the highest price you'd pay for that loaf before you just shrug and say, nah, not worth it, and walk out the door. Then on the other side of the equation, you have cost. Simple enough. For that amazing loaf of bread, this is everything. The fancy flour, the electricity for the ovens, the baker's paycheck, every single penny it took to make it.
So, if the willingness to pay and the cost create the size of the value pie, then price? Price is just the knife that slices it up. That number on the price tag is just the business deciding how to split that pie between you and them.
And that leads us to this crucial point. That big value pie gets split into 2 key pieces. The slice the business gets to keep, that's its profit, or what we call business value. And the slice the customer gets, that's your satisfaction, that feeling of getting a great deal. We call that consumer value.
You ever buy something and just think to yourself, wow, I would have easily paid double for this? That feeling right there is consumer value. It's that wonderful little gap between the most you were willing to pay and what you actually paid. So once this idea of splitting value really clicks, you can start to look at pretty much any business out there and neatly categorize it into one of 4 types. It's actually a pretty cool way to look at things.
Now this matrix might look a little academic, but it's really simple. It just asks 2 basic questions. Is the customer getting good value? And is the business making money? Based on the answers, you end up in one of 4 boxes. Let's break them down.
A winner is the sweet spot, right? Great product, profitable price. A giver could be a new startup that's just burning through cash to get users, giving them tons of value. A taker, well, that might be a company with a monopoly that can charge you a lot for so-so service. And a loser, well, that kind of business is not going to be around for very long.
All right, let's zoom back out and tie all this together. Why does thinking about business this way, in terms of creating value, even matter to us? So here it is. This is the big takeaway. So many businesses are just focused on capturing value, on trying to get a bigger slice of the pie for themselves. But the truly great, lasting businesses, they focus on creating value. They focus on making the entire pie bigger for everyone. And that leaves us with one last, pretty powerful question to think about. As you go through your day, look at the companies you buy from. Don't just ask if they're making money. ask yourself a much bigger question. What total value are they really, truly creating for the world?